I'm going to start off this video with I would say quote, but it's not really a quote, it's just something to sort of bear in mind. And that is that personal experience just trumps everything else. Now, it's funny because I used to be very convinced by this argument that a plant-based diet was the way to go forward, that it was super healthy, and meat, in the past people had to eat meat out of necessity, but we live in a sort of enlightened era where we can just eat plants and carbohydrates and nuts and we'll be alright. We don't have to kill animals for food anymore. And mate, honestly, you go to some of these videos of guys like Mike the Vegan, Earthling Ed, you know, these sort of these sort of plant-based vegan activists on YouTube. And a lot of these guys, they will put forward the most amazing arguments for why, like, just how it's healthy to eat plants. You know, so they'll go really in on it. They'll go really in on the scientific detail. Like I was watching this, well, I think one of Earthling Ed's sort of most famous videos is one about sort of, do you need fish oils to like live a healthy life. And he just goes in on like the science behind fish oil, and you know, there are lots of different types of fish oil, of like what we have from fish oil that's good is it's like a certain type of fat, and you get one type of fat from plants but you don't get the other, but the liver converts the fats in, you know, really complicated stuff, and you know, I'm not really doing it justice. It's extremely complicated. And at the time, I knew absolutely nothing about nutrition, and I heard that and I just thought, shit, fair enough, you know, that makes sense. I don't understand it, but he clearly knows what he's talking about. I'm going to trust that, you know. And then you'd see these things of like Mike the Vegan, and you know, like protein. It says stuff about proteins, like plant protein. You can get plenty of protein from plants, right? But is it as good as animal protein? And he'd go in on these sort of things about protein and where you can get protein from in plants, and you know, protein stacking. You know, because basically there's protein in everything. You know, in bread, in broccoli, in, you know, it's not just in meat, right? But it's in sort of smaller quantities, and there are lots of different types of protein. Like I think there's like 9 different types of protein, and you know, Mike the Vegan would say it's okay just as long as you eat enough different foods so that you get all the different types of protein in the right ratios and it all balances out, and really complicated stuff. Anyway, this is before I knew much about nutrition. I still know an awful lot, but I heard this at the time. I was like, yeah, fair play. Like, these guys know their stuff. I'm gonna trust it. And I was never a vegan, but I was vegetarian for a bit, and like I did think like, oh, I should go vegan. Like, this is the right choice. You know, this is what science is telling me. The problem is that I still didn't feel great. You know, I would eat a range of different foods. I'd eat plant proteins like chickpeas and kidney beans. You know, I'd have a healthy diet, you know, porridge. You know, I'd just do everything that I was sort of told to by these vegans. And according to them, I still have a bit of cheese and stuff like that, you know, and a bit of dairy, but and according to them, I would be fine. I'd be absolutely set. You know, I had tofu, I had you know, plant meats, you know, but not even that much. You know, tempeh, all this stuff. So, you know, I have absolutely no doubt that you know, in my mind, I was just acting according to the science that I'd heard. You know, I'd heard that you didn't need to eat meat to get enough protein, and I'd seen the graphs that made it make sense. The problem is, in my personal experience, I felt exhausted the whole time. I felt, I had brain fog, I wasn't particularly strong. And eventually I thought, I'm going to start eating a bit more fish. I'm going to start eating fish again. And, almost immediately, I just got much better. I got much more sort of feeling awake, Maybe it's the protein, maybe it's the fish oils, I don't know. But I remember adding fish into my diet, again, just made me feel sick. And again, according to these vegan guys, it's like, oh no, but fish shouldn't matter because you can get all the protein from this, and there's a chart over here that says lipids you can get from chia seeds. And also fish is bad for you because it's been in dirty water. All the science was just not adding up. Scientifically I couldn't really argue with it. But I just felt better eating fish. And then I just went back to a sort of regular diet, I just ate meat again, and the same thing. I just felt amazing. I just felt absolutely incredible, And it's like, oh no, but you shouldn't, because you can get protein from plants, and and the fats are bad for you, and all this stuff. After a point, I was just like, I don't care what the science says. You're a clever guy. You're like these guys, like Mike the Vegan, Earthling Ed, they're clever people. They're really bright. They've done a lot of research into nutrition, and they really know that they clearly know their stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm not buying it. It doesn't matter how much data they show me. Just my own personal experience was I felt shit on a vegan diet, or in a vegetarian diet rather, And I just, after a point, you just can't argue with that. You can just throw scientific papers at me all you like to say why being a vegan's really healthy. But it's just, you can't really, if someone feels shit on a diet, you can't really take it any further than that, So, I just think that's really something important to remember, generally in life. It's just with all these stuff, there's so much science out there that really sort of explains stuff in a really interesting way, but you almost don't need it, I do think, back in the day, we just, a lot of this stuff, we just sort of knew, there's so much research about intermittent fasting, that being good for you, but do you really need to know it to just get on a diet, just don't eat until midday, or whenever you've done a bit of work in the morning, and then you have lunch, and then you have a breakfast. It just feels so much nicer, You don't really need to know the science behind it. And cold showers, for example. I've had cold showers for ages. I know it's meant to be good for you. It's meant to spike your dopamine, and it's good for your immune system and all that stuff. But I just do it because it feels good. It feels nice to be in cold water. My body likes the feeling of cold water. It's painful, but it feels good as well. And I just think you don't really need the science behind it. I love Andrew Huberman. I think he's great. I really learn a lot from him. But at the end of the day, if something doesn't work for you, you don't have to do it. And a lot of his recommendations, he'll sort of give the science behind it. So it'll be for example, coffee in the morning. First thing in the morning, you're not meant to have coffee because your adenosine system isn't active. I don't know what the fuck adenosine is, but I listened to this thing where he says about it. He talks about how coffee don't have it first thing in the morning, have it after an hour or so. I tried it and I was just like, I don't get it. I don't get the difference, So I just went back to having coffee first thing in the morning. And what a lovely ritual, It gets me out of bed in the morning, to be honest, having a nice coffee first thing. Is there some science that sort of contradicts that? Clearly so. But you know, it doesn't matter. Your personal experience is more important. So obviously be open-minded to all these different scientific studies and like ideas. But don't forget, how it benefits you and how you feel is more important. You know, just don't get peer pressured by science. You know, just do what feels good to you, and you know, like you know, within reason, right? You know, like if it feels really good for you to, or even things that you can't explain. You know, for example, me eating a lot of bread, I don't really feel good if I eat a lot of bread, you know. Now, I don't really buy the whole like no carb thing. I just think, oh, come on, a bit of bread, that's got to be good for you. But I find that if I don't eat bread, I'm much more alert. You know, now there are many doctors and scientists out there who would be like, no, you should eat bread, that's fine, you know. And there are a lot of others who'd be like, oh no, gluten is bad for you, you know, don't eat it. But I just ignore all of that. I just think, look, I'm just not gonna have any bread at the moment because it'll make me feel bloated, and then I'll be tired later on in the day. You know, that's as far as it doesn't need to go any further than that. You know, you don't need to think, oh, I've got to minimise my carb intake by this amount of grams, and you know, boost my fats. It's like, you know, you've only got so many hours in the day. I mean, you know, like maybe if you're a bodybuilder and you really want to get your macros like on point, fair enough, like go for it. But I just think you don't need to deep it so much. And it's just a weird thing, because the other thing is, you know, we only know so much about science, and we should remember that, you know, science has just afforded us so much of the technological developments we have today. But you don't have to let it take over your life, you know, all this biohacking. Listen to it, take what's good from it, but, you know, you're your own person at the end of the day, you know. Just do what works well for you. Just do yourself a favour, you know, do yourself a favour and just don't do something because you feel you should, because there's scientific data somewhere that says you should or you shouldn't, you know. Everyone's different, you know, and it only takes one study to come along and completely rejig the whole thing, you know, like, you know, I mean, that's happening all the time with diet, right? You know, 1 minute eggs are bad, the next minute they're really good for you, you know. But if you just go with what your gut thinks, what you think, you know, and how you feel, not just in the moment, obviously, but like, you know, do you feel bloated after a meal, or do you feel energized? Like, if you just go with that, then you just save yourself so much aggro, you know. I mean, again, like, to sort of the other way around, Paul Saladino, really clever guy. Like, you know, he could talk for England about how, you know, how good like his sort of hybrid carnivore diet is, you know, and like he really knows his stuff as well. Similar, and I'm a big fan of his diet. Like, I'm not too far off from it, to be honest. Like, you know, obviously I eat carbs and stuff, but like I just eat a lot of yogurt, eat a lot of meat and honey and stuff like that, you know. But I don't follow it because I'm convinced by all the things he says. I mean, I eat vegetables as well, but you know, I'm not following it because I'm convinced by all the things he's saying about like our plant attack hormones and, you know, carbohydrates, you know, whatever. I just find I feel much better when I eat that diet, and I just leave it at that, you know. It's the same with, you know, like grammar in languages. You know, you don't have to explain every tiny little thing about, you know, why, you know, why that why that verb form takes a feminine, feminine ending in the past, in the passive past participle, you know. like after a point, it's just like, who cares? It does. Just get on with it, you know. And just leave it at that. Yeah. You just save yourself so much aggro, guys. So anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.